Hey gang, we're in here. Welcome on back to the Retrocade and another episode of WTF Wednesday. And for this week, we're going to go back to the late 1980s, 1988 to be specific, and play a game that was actually one of the first non-American style games that I really got into, and it was a really good example for me of a game that sold me based on the box art that the game came in. And if this introduction means anything to you, then you've already known which game we're going to play. We are going to play Top Secret Episode, which is based on the classic Japanese manga / anime character Golgo 13. Now this little bit right here will give you the explanation of the plot of this game. So over the Statue of Liberty, a helicopter explodes mysteriously. This is a CIA helicopter transporting Cassandra G, a weapon of bacteriological warfare. The CIA concludes that the explosion is part of a KGB plot and someone has stolen the vaccine. A shell fired from an M16 was discovered among the fragments of the ill-fated helicopter. And then we get this opening intro screen of Golgo 13. Now, the character Golgo 13 has been around since 1968. He started as a manga character created by Takao Saito, who sadly passed away in 2021, but it is established in the Guinness Book of World Records as the longest continuous manga in existence, because it now spans 65 years going into this year. So what this game is it's an action video game that has a lot of different components to it, and that's why I wanted to show it to you for WTF Wednesday. So as you see on here, across where it says push start, you see the number 1. That's important because in this game you have 50 continues that you have at your disposal. Now, another part of this game is that there's a lot of narrative that is built into it with these sorts of scenes where you have Golgo 13, who also goes by the alias Duke Togo. Not very original, I grant you, but this is very much created in the style of James Bond and all the classic Cold War characters of the late 60s, early 70s. So now we have to initiate a scene where we have a conversation with this woman, Maria Lavalette. She's an agent for Fixer, which is basically like a clandestine organization. But Golgo 13 does not belong to any particular group. Doesn't work for the CIA. He doesn't work for MI6 or whomever. He's a freelance assassin. And in this narrative, he is the greatest assassin in the world. So our people on the copter case have vanished. Someone shot the copter down, but a message the group left behind said it wasn't you. Apparently, someone planned to pin the explosion on you. We've gotten our hands on a report from a man who calls himself Condor. This report has information on where the vaccine is. Because Condor knew this, it seems someone tried to put him out of business. So Condor is someplace in East Berlin now. We're asking you to get the people trying to kill Condor. Then find out where the vaccine is and execute the leader of this mystery group. Our group had to know where Condor was staying, so he will give it a try. So this game is part side-scroller, part first-person shooter, to be honest. Because while we are here currently in East Berlin and we can move along, what we have is we can use our B button to jump and we can use the A button to attack. And at some point we will be able to utilize a gun. Whoop. Like we can right there. Now we can go into these different stations and we'll know somebody's here because there'll be music accompanying our being here. Watch yourself, the KGB will be watching every move you make. Condor's people must be in some station. So this game was created by a company called Vic Tokai, and if you don't know that name, if it does ring a bell for you, it's because Vic Tokai is actually a massive telecommunications company in Japan. But in the 1980s and 1990s, they made video games for everything from the Nintendo Entertainment System to the PlayStation. So every time we dispatch a baddie and we don't get shot, now this is where it goes to first-person shooter. We'll have these moments come up where we've got to take these guys out. Now, granted, this is a very rudimentary first-person shooter type of confrontation. And we can't go in there. We got hit by the motorcycle. Take him out. Now here we go, Friedrich Street Station. And we have this guy show up. I'm Dirk Bullet. Condor's been trying to get a hold of you. When you've taken care of business, you might try the Brandenburg Gate. By the way, it seems a fixer agent has commandeered a helicopter. Those KGB scum are getting a little uptight, so you'll want to go nice and easy. So now we'll just proceed on through East Berlin, and the game is separated by these sections where you can have different confrontations with different people. This is the Alexander Hotel. All the rooms are filled at present, so we'll be coming back to the hotel. Ow. Now, up in the upper left-hand corner, you see our life meter, and I am almost dead. But fortunately, one of the things about this game is that when you get to these first-person shooter situations, you can get your life back really, really quickly. And one of the things you have to bear in mind is what is down here on the lower part of the screen. It shows you how many enemies you have to take out and what types you have to take out. So now we're back up to full health. We've got 57 bullets. Whoop, and I died. You have to get used to how the guys shoot and being able to stay out of the way of them. So now we're on our second continue, and we have only 41 more to go. And I know this has 50 continues because back in the day when I first played this game, I played through all 50 continues and didn't beat it. But they have kind of baked this into the game where you have the opportunity to get as far into it as possible. Now this guy should be able to talk to, but I'm not able to. Ah! And I died again. It has been a very long time since I played this game, and I used to be much better at it. I grant you that the controls are not the greatest, which is part of the reason why this game was not as popular as it could have been. But when I said at the outset that part of the reason why I got into this game was for being somebody who was really in anime before most people knew what anime was, I had no idea about this particular character of Golgo 13 until I was at a Blockbuster looking for a game to rent, and this Top Secret episode had just come out, and the cover of it had the name Top Secret episode in big red letters, and below it you saw Golgo 13 holding an M16 pointing like just off target past you. And I was interested enough to be like, hey, I'll give this a shot for a quick 1 or 2 day rental. There we go. And it was because of that that I ended up actually finding out more about the character and the manga. And now, almost 30 years later, I'm very much a fan of the series. I have most of the manga. I have watched the anime that the different companies have created over the years. And it's definitely one of my guilty pleasures when it comes to anime. That's not to say it's a great anime or that it's, it does anything of particular importance, but more the idea that it is just one of those things that if you're somebody like me who grew up at the tail end of the Cold War and knew a lot about the Cold War and was very much fascinated by the Cold War, this is one of those characters that really gives you something to have fun with. Go away. You too. Now here we go, and Alexander Station. And in very much the same style of James Bond, all the female characters tend to have names that insinuate a lot. So an enemy sniper is to station himself in the television tower and hit Condor. It wouldn't do to have the sniper on the ground, would it? There's a helicopter landing pad near the station. There's an M66 in the copter. You'd better get there quickly before the KGB finds you. When you finished work, stop by the hotel. Aboard the helicopter, Golgo 13 heads for the TV tower. So now we've gone from being on the ground to being in the air. And now it becomes slightly different. It's like very much a bullet hell game in the style of almost like 1942, which we played for our one-day playthrough this last Monday. Oh, I always hated these guys. Because you got to be able to fire right through those spitting balls and get to the thing in the middle. Now, if I remember right, there is a first-person shooter situation in this level as well. And I think there are, I want to say there's a dozen levels in this game. And if we have time, we should be able to get to the other aspect of this game where you have to negotiate your way through different 3D mazes that were built in. So this game never really figured out what it wanted or was trying to be. Or that it tried to be a little bit of everything. So took that one out. We've got one more plane and one more helicopter to deal with. There, we got that one. And if you have a turbo button on this, then you can fire off bullets pretty quickly. But actually, in this game, it's almost better off to fire them individually and not use a turbo button. So now we've gotten to the tower. And now what we've got to do is we've got to be able to, from here, set up and do our snipe shot. And we've got to do it fairly quickly. So how you do this is you will just kind of turn one way or another. Press B to zoom in, press A, and down he goes. So the airborne hit completed. Golgo 13 headed toward the Brandenburg Gate. which is this, which is an actual location in Germany. One of the things I did like about this game is that it gave you an idea of actual people and actual things that exist in the real world. Like, East Berlin isn't a thing anymore. After the fall of the Berlin Wall in the late 1980s and the fall of the Soviet Union, Berlin united itself from being East and West Berlin to being one city again. Ah! I couldn't jump out of the way of those bullets. So we're already 16 minutes in, and I've died 3 times. But once you get the general pattern recognition down, this part of the game isn't really all that hard. Spree River. So we have 3 guys on the ground and 2 helicopters. So I always found taking the guys out on the ground first was easier, and then dealing with the helicopters. Because those patterns are a little bit easier to read. So now, this should be the hotel, right? Nope, not here. And then this helicopter should come back down here. And away he goes. I didn't mean to stand still that long. And this is the hotel. Just a tourist. There's a hotel near here. If you value your life, don't hang around this part of town. So now we come back here and I think... Nope, we've still got to go back to... We've got to go back to one more station and talk to one more person, and then we can head back to the hotel. And it's not this one. But if you can imagine what it was like back in the late 80s, early 90s, trying to play this game, and not having a clue how all this worked. I mean, again, you have to bear in mind, this was way before you had the internet to help you out. You didn't have Game Facts, you didn't have much of anything, and even back in the day when you had Nintendo Power, this was the sort of game that didn't get covered very much. Now, I will say that I have gone on and beaten this game once. Potsdam Station. Here we go. So this is Condor. I owe you one for getting me out of trouble. These boys are looking to eliminate you now. I'd be careful if I were you. Got my hands on part of a file in the vaccine, the hideout for, and he just got shot. So it's in the river that we crossed coming back from the Brandenburg Gate. We're going to have to go through this scenario again. Past the biker. And now we can go back to the hotel. Mr. Duke Togo, I believe I have a message for you. Miss Cherry Grace is waiting for you. She's in room 702. Of course, Condor is dead. Can you get a hold of some scuba gear and a spear gun for me? But like most games of the era, if you had stuff like this, I mean, this isn't a whole lot different from games like Ninja Gaiden that had a whole lot of narrative storytelling in it that was balanced out through the gameplay. And in keeping with the visual style and the fact that this is all based on a manga, it served the game to try and throw as much of this stuff in as they could. I think the real issue is that they pretty much threw everything in but the kitchen sink. And the other thing is that this game is extremely difficult the further along it goes. Now, I don't have to do a whole lot to explain to you what just happened here, because the lights went out and my health bar has gone all the way back up to 200. So now I have to get over to the Spree River, which isn't too far from here. And we'll go through this little dance again. Should be a helicopter here. Trying to get them when they do that quick sweep in isn't as easy as when they just stay there for a second. Now we should just have to get over here to the river. But we got this last one to deal with. Whoop. We got one more guy on the ground to take out. And then we'll have the helicopter over here. So there's the river. If you go to the Green Mansion, you might get a clue on where Condor is. Okay, well, I already know where he is, and he's dead. And we're back at the Brandenburg Gate. I can't talk to that guy. Already talked to that guy. Can't go in that building. Here we go. The Green Mansion. What brings you to this palace? Can you get a hold of some scuba gear and a spear gun for me? Condor left something here. This palace is connected to the Spree River. So now we have Act 3, and now we've got to go through this whole thing. Basically navigating our way through this in very much the same way they had to in like the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles underwater level with the dam that a lot of people to this day do not like. Whoop, and I died. I got hit by the kelp. But that, everybody, in a nutshell, is Top Secret Episode Golgo 13 from 1988. Now, like I said, this game gets predominantly harder the further along you go, to the point where I've only beaten it once, and I had to do it with the help of a Game Genie. Because the final levels are so insane in terms of how much damage that you take, that unless you pump in a cheat code or 6, getting to the end of it is actually really, really tough. So we'll bring our usual 2 questions into this. Is it a good game? It is, from the idea of if this is the sort of game that tickles your fancy, for lack of a better term. Is it one for everybody? No. I think this is one that, like a lot of games of the 80s and 90s, as Nintendo was looking for ways to come up with as much content for the NES as possible, they were looking for anything that could fill specific niches. And I think this is one that really fills that niche. If you're somebody who grew up like me, liking manga, liking anime, and liking these sorts of clandestine, super spy, Cold War story ideas. Not everybody goes for that stuff. So it ticked enough boxes for me at the time that I was like, well, I'll give it a shot. But it's not an easy game. The controls are not easy to negotiate. Again, you don't have any real layout of what is where, and you don't know for sure who you need to talk to or where you need to go to get from one point to the next. It's not to say you can't figure it out if you have half a brain, but especially nowadays where everything is laid out in game facts and what have you, it's a lot easier than it was in 1988, 89, 90, I'll give you that. Is this a game that can be made today? Sure. But who would make it? Now that Takao Saito sadly passed away in 2021, The manga is continuing. That was one of his last wishes, was that he wanted Golgo 13 to continue and carry on long after he was gone. So there is an opportunity there to make a new version of a game like this. And with modern graphics and what you're capable of doing, I would venture to say you could make you could make a really interesting 3D action style game. I know in the late 90s, early 2000s, the advent of the rail shooter, Golgo 13 had a lot of arcade games that you could go and you basically controlled him through the scope of his M16. But that's a far cry from making a game like this. So, do I think I could see a new version of a game like this? I doubt it. I don't think there's enough of an interest there. I don't think enough people are familiar with the IP in the US especially to really know for sure. And especially because as a character, Golgo 13 was very much a product of the time in which he was created. That late 60s, early 70s sort of toxic masculinity that is very much being called out to the fore, and rightly so. I don't think there'd be a character like that can really survive in this sort of environment outside of the current media in which he is best served. So, but if you want to give it a shot, I mean, for lack of a better term, go ahead. I'm playing this on the Messen emulator. Again, this is the free emulator, MESEN. This ROM is not very hard to find. It doesn't take up much memory space on your computer. And let me know what you think, or if you were, let me know what your experience with this is. They did come out with a sequel, I think 2 years later, called The Moffat Conspiracy, which was a better game, but it was still just as challenging, and also wasn't still nearly as popular as people thought it was going to be in the US. So, but in the meantime, that is our WTF Wednesday for this week. Thank you very much for tuning in. Again, as always, if you've been enjoying the content, best way to show it, hit that like button, subscribe if you are new, and ring the bell to be notified of new episodes as they come out every other week. And again, be sure to tune in to our ongoing playthrough of Dark Souls Remastered, which we started a couple of months ago now that we are into 2024. It feels like a lifetime ago that we got that done, but that's still under, we're still getting through that, and we're, I'd say, at least halfway through the game, I'm hoping. And we'll have new episodes again this Saturday and Sunday. And if there is a game you would like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, the Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, or Mega Drive, SNK, Neo Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below or drop me a line on social media. It can be any game from those consoles that you want. My name is Ron. It's been great to spend this time with you. Be safe, be well, happy gaming, Happy New Year, and we'll talk to you this weekend for more Dark Souls Remastered. Bye.